He thought his reward would be simple. Instead, he got the alien princess alien love Captain Elias Mercer stood on the edge of the observation deck, staring at the swirling storms of Xiphora below. The planet's surface was a chaotic blend of jagged cliffs, rivers of liquid metal, and vast stretches of glowing, poisonous flora. Many explorers had tried to chart Xiphora, but few returned. Yet here he was, calm and focused, as if danger was merely another puzzle to solve. He brushed a hand through his short, dark hair and adjusted the straps of his armored suit. The mission was simple in theory. The Galactic Trade Council had contracted him to retrieve a rare crystal, one said to hold energy properties unlike anything in known space. The reward the Council promised would be substantial. Credits enough to secure his retirement, or at least to fund another ship, one fully equipped for deep space exploration without compromises. But Elias knew better than to expect things to be simple. That was never how the universe worked. As his ship descended through Xiphora's atmosphere, turbulence shook the cabin violently. The onboard computer struggled to compensate for the gravity fluctuations and electromagnetic storms. Elias gritted his teeth and adjusted the thrusters manually. His years of experience, his instinctive feel for ships and space, made the difference between crashing and landing. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, and for a moment, Elias felt the familiar thrill that came with surviving chaos. The landing site was a plateau near one of Xiphora's crystal caves. From his scans, the cave seemed almost alive, pulsing with a strange bioluminescent energy that made the ground shimmer. The crystal he sought was buried deep within these formations, protected by layers of natural traps and alien predators. Many had tried to enter these caves and never returned. Elias knew the dangers, but he also knew something else. Humans thrived where others failed. Stepping out of the ship, the cold air hit him with a sharp intensity. The ground beneath his boots was uneven, a mixture of jagged rock and soft, glowing moss that seemed to shift when touched. He moved carefully, scanning the environment with sensors built into his suit. There were signs of alien creatures nearby, tracks that suggested large, quadrupedal hunters with claws capable of tearing steel. Elias smiled. Nothing too serious. He had faced worse on survival planets during his career. Hours passed as he navigated the twisting caverns, using climbing equipment and his own wits to avoid natural hazards. At one point, a sudden quake shook the cavern walls, sending a shower of glowing rocks down toward him. Elias rolled to the side, barely avoiding injury, and pressed on. The crystal, from what the Council's research indicated, was deep within the largest chamber, protected not just by nature, but by a peculiar magnetic field. It would interfere with electronic devices, so he relied on his instincts, maps, and old-fashioned problem-solving skills. Reaching the inner chamber, Elias finally saw it, the crystal. It was larger than he expected, a perfect obelisk of pulsating light, hovering slightly above a pedestal of rock. Its glow bathed the cavern in a serene yet eerie light. Elias approached carefully, studying its energy patterns. Many would have tried to grab it quickly, relying on technology to shield them, but he knew better. The crystal's energy could react unpredictably if disturbed improperly. He set down a small, custom-made stabilizer, one he had designed for just such occasions, and carefully lifted the crystal. Immediately, a low rumble shook the cavern. Elias sprinted toward the exit as the magnetic field reacted violently to the removal. Rocks tumbled and energy discharges flared from the walls. His suit absorbed some of the impact, but he felt the heat of the energy pulses against his skin. Every step was measured, every move calculated. In moments like these, humans excelled. Adaptable, courageous, unpredictable, traits that no technology alone could replicate. Emerging from the cave, Elias barely had time to catch his breath before the first of Xiphora's predators appeared. Towering, four-legged beasts with metallic scales and glowing eyes surrounded him. He drew his compact plasma pistol, aiming carefully. A precise shot disabled one, causing it to collapse in a heap. Others hesitated, unsure of the human who dared face them. Elias' presence, his confidence, his calm demeanor in the face of danger unsettled them. They were used to fear controlling the weak. He displayed none. After a tense confrontation, he made his way back to his ship, carrying the crystal carefully. The journey back through the storm-ridden atmosphere was just as treacherous as the descent, but Elias handled it with practiced skill. Each turbulence, each electric storm, was a challenge he met with ingenuity. Humans, he thought, were remarkable not because they were strongest or fastest, but because they survived, adapted, and thrived where others failed. When he finally emerged from Zyphora's atmosphere and charted a course back to the Galactic Trade Council, Elias allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The mission was complete, and soon he would receive his reward. Credits, fame, and perhaps a few surprises in technology or resources, the usual. He leaned back in his pilot chair, letting the ship's autopilot take over for a moment. He thought about the Council's words, a simple reward for a dangerous task. How simple it would be, he imagined, to receive what he was promised. Upon entering orbit around the Council's station, Elias noticed unusual activity on the communications array. Council representatives were waiting, their holographic images flickering in the cabin. Their expressions were formal, measured, but there was a tension beneath their calm facade. He raised an eyebrow. Perhaps the simplicity he expected was about to be challenged, though he did not yet know how. "Captain Mercer," the council leader said, his voice steady but unusually somber, "we commend you on your successful retrieval of the Zyphora crystal. Your skill, bravery, and resourcefulness have once again proven the value of human ingenuity." Elias nodded, acknowledging the praise with his typical modesty. He had grown used to compliments. They were almost always followed by a transactional exchange. "Thank you," he replied. "Now about the reward?" The council leader's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of hesitation that caught Elias' sharp eye. "About that," he began carefully. "Your reward will not be what you might expect. It is living, and it requires your attention and care." Elias blinked. "Living?" he asked. He had faced alien predators, survived planetary hazards, and outwitted pirates, but this was unexpected. "What do you mean exactly?" From the shadows of the holographic chamber, a figure stepped forward. Tall, graceful, and exuding an aura of authority, she was unlike any human Elias had seen. Her skin shimmered faintly with a subtle iridescence, her eyes glowing softly with intelligence and confidence. This was no ordinary being. "This is Princess Arelyn," the council leader said. "She is heir to the Valorian Empire. As part of a diplomatic arrangement, she will be traveling under your guidance. She is not merely a passenger, she is a guest, a charge, and a representative of her people." Elias' mouth went dry for a moment. He had faced dangerous alien life forms, hostile terrain, and impossible odds, but a living, royal alien passenger was a completely different challenge. I was expecting credits, resources, perhaps even technology," he said carefully. "Not this." Arelyn regarded him silently, her expression unreadable. There was no hint of fear or intimidation, only a calm assessment, as if she were weighing the human standing before her. Elias felt a strange mixture of awe and apprehension. This was no ordinary reward. The council leader continued. "Your task is not just to return her safely to the Valorian homeworld. You are to ensure her well-being, protect her from any threats, and learn to navigate the complex social and political customs of her people. In return, you will gain not only the traditional rewards, but a rare honor, the trust of a major galactic power and the potential for alliances beyond imagination." Elias exhaled slowly. The universe had a strange sense of humor, he thought. From crystals to royalty, from danger to responsibility, the challenge had evolved. Yet he felt the familiar spark of excitement, the human spark that thrived in adversity. Challenges were meant to be faced, dangers were meant to be overcome, and humans had a way of exceeding expectations when the odds were stacked against them. He stood, straightening his posture, and extended a hand toward Arelyn. "Then I suppose we have work to do," he said, his voice steady. The princess regarded the gesture for a long moment, then nodded slightly, acknowledging the alliance that had just begun. As they boarded his ship, Elias allowed himself a small, private thought. This mission would be far from simple, and yet he had never faced a challenge he did not relish. The stars outside stretched endlessly, filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. And somewhere in that vast expanse, human ingenuity and courage would shine, proving once again that no matter how advanced or powerful other beings might be, there was something uniquely remarkable about humanity. Elias set the ship's controls, prepared for the journey, and glanced at Arelyn. She was silent, observing the instruments, the controls, and him. There was a quiet intelligence in her eyes, a recognition that humans could be unpredictable and remarkable. Perhaps, he thought, this partnership would teach them both something neither expected. The ship rose into orbit, leaving Zyphora's dangers behind, but not its lessons. Ilias knew the universe was full of threats, yes, but also full of opportunities for those willing to face them. And as they prepared for the journey to the Valorian Empire, he felt a rare, unspoken thrill. The reward, whatever it truly was already beginning to reveal itself, and it promised to be far more extraordinary than any crystal or gold he could have imagined. Humans were remarkable. And Ilias Mercer, as always, was about to prove why. The ship hummed steadily as it moved through space, leaving Zyphora far behind. Outside the viewport, stars stretched in endless lines and distant nebulae glowed in soft colors. Ilias Mercer piloted with calm precision, but his thoughts were not on the navigation. Instead, they lingered on the unexpected guest beside him, Princess Arelyn. She sat upright in the observation lounge, her posture perfect, her glowing eyes scanning the readouts and instruments as if she already understood every detail. Humans, she had observed before, were clever, sometimes reckless and unpredictable. Ilias Mercer seemed to combine all three in a way that intrigued her. She had expected a human to be noisy, boastful, or clumsy, none of which he was. He was quiet, confident, and precise, with an air of authority that even she could not dismiss. Ilias, for his part, found the princess fascinating in her own right. She was unlike any species he had encountered. Her movements were fluid, almost like water, but every motion carried intent and purpose. Her eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light of the cabin, held a mixture of intelligence, curiosity, and caution. She was clearly assessing him, not just as a human, but as someone she might have to trust to survive the dangers that awaited them. "Captain Mercer," she said finally, her voice calm but carrying a weight of authority, "I assume you understand the importance of my safe arrival at Valorian space. This is not merely a transport mission. It is delicate." Ilias nodded, keeping his tone steady and friendly. "I understand. I've dealt with delicate situations before. Pirates, planetary hazards, hostile creatures. I don't intend to fail on this one either." She tilted her head slightly, observing him with an expression he could not quite read. "You are confident. That is unusual for a human, most of your kind, faced with danger, panic, or seek escape." "I've never been one to panic," he replied. "I adapt. That's how humans survive. You might say we thrive where others fail." A faint, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. "Perhaps that is why you were chosen." The ship passed through a belt of asteroid debris, forcing Ilias to maneuver carefully. The autopilot could handle most of it, but he preferred manual control. It gave him a sense of closeness to the mission, a connection to the challenges of the universe. He had always believed that no machine could replicate the human instinct in critical moments. Princess Arelyn watched him work, noting how he anticipated the movements of the asteroids, how his hands moved with both precision and adaptability. He was, she realized, more than capable. And yet she could not help but wonder how much of his confidence was innate and how much came from experience. As they cleared the asteroid field, Ilias finally allowed himself a moment to speak more casually. "I have to ask," he said, glancing at her, "what exactly is the situation back in Valorian space? Why would the Council send you with a human?" Arelyn's expression darkened slightly. "Political tension," she said carefully. "There are factions in my government who do not trust humans. Some view them as weak, unpredictable, or dangerous. Sending me with you is unconventional. It tests both your abilities and the willingness of my people to accept cooperation." Ilias raised an eyebrow. "So I'm not just transporting you, I'm proving humans are reliable." "In essence," she replied, "though reliability in my experience is rare among your kind, humans are brave, yes, resourceful, adaptable, but trust that is harder to earn." Ilias smiled faintly. "Well, you have my word, Princess. You'll get to your homeworld safely. You'll see humans are more than just survival skills. We care, we think, and sometimes we even surprise people." Arelyn studied him quietly. There was something different about him, something that set him apart from other humans she had observed. He did not underestimate her, nor did he treat her as fragile. There was respect in his voice, intelligence in his choices, and courage in his actions. Slowly, she began to wonder if perhaps the Council had been wise in assigning him to her. The journey continued, uneventful for the next several hours, though tension lingered in the air. Both were aware of potential dangers, space pirates, rogue ships, and unpredictable cosmic phenomena. Elias maintained the ship's speed and course with precision, while Aralyn quietly reviewed star charts and political reports, her mind always active, always calculating. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared. Sensors indicated multiple incoming vessels moving fast and unmarked. Elias' hands flew to the controls as he assessed the situation. "Pirates," he muttered under his breath. "Looks like someone has an interest in the Sci-Fi crystal." Aralyn's eyes narrowed. "We are not prepared for combat," she said, though she did not sound fearful. Her presence had an air of calm determination, as if danger was something she faced routinely, even if unarmed. Elias gritted his teeth. "We'll manage." He engaged the ship's defensive systems, maneuvering sharply to avoid the first volley of attacks. The pirates were aggressive, their technology advanced but predictable in patterns. Elias relied on instinct, calculating angles, timing, and speed with precision. Humans often had an edge in unpredictability, and he used it fully. The first exchange was chaotic. Lasers streaked across space, hitting the hull but failing to penetrate. Aralyn, observing closely, offered tactical advice based on her knowledge of space navigation, pointing out weak points in the pirate formations. Together, they coordinated, human improvisation paired with alien intelligence. By the end of the encounter, the pirates were forced to retreat, unable to match their combined strategy. Elias exhaled, leaning back in his seat. "That was close," he admitted. Aralyn nodded, though her expression remained composed. "You handled that well." Most humans would have panicked, lost control, yet you remained calm, precise, and effective. "Experience," Elias replied simply, "and a little luck. Luck tends to favor those willing to act, not hesitate." For the next stretch of the journey, silence fell between them, comfortable yet charged with awareness. Both were aware that trust was forming, slowly but unmistakably. Aralyn, usually reserved and cautious, found herself studying Elias with growing interest. She had expected a human to be impulsive or reckless, yet he displayed qualities that were rare even among Valorians: patience, adaptability, and moral clarity. As the ship passed near a dense nebula, systems began to falter, electronic instruments flickering unpredictably. Elias worked swiftly, using manual overrides to maintain course and stability. Aralyn, noticing his skill, offered suggestions on stabilizing the ship using energy conduits and gravitational adjustments. Her input was precise, and Elias respected it, adapting his controls to integrate her recommendations. For the first time, Aralyn spoke more personally. "You handle adversity well, Captain. It is admirable." Elias glanced at her, surprised by the compliment. "Thanks. I suppose you could say it's part of being human. We survive by adapting, even when things seem impossible." She studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting the star-filled expanse outside. "Perhaps your people are more remarkable than I believed. I thought humans relied too much on instinct and impulse. Yet you calculate, anticipate, and act with purpose. You are not just strong, you are wise in ways I did not expect." The words surprised Elias. He had faced praise before, but from an alien princess, acknowledging qualities that went beyond physical skill, it carried weight. "I'm glad to hear that. Humans are underestimated often. We thrive in ways others do not see." As the hours passed, the two shared more than observations about survival and strategy. Elias spoke of his past missions, the planets he had explored, the creatures he had faced, and the cultures he had studied. Aralyn shared insights about the Valorians, their history, their customs, and the challenges of leading a civilization built on strict tradition. Each story brought understanding, building a bridge across species and experience. Night cycles passed differently in the ship than on their respective homeworlds. Artificial lights simulated a day-night rhythm, yet neither paid much attention. Instead, they focused on learning about each other, testing boundaries, and understanding the other's perspective. There was no fear, no disrespect, only cautious curiosity. And slowly, respect grew, followed by a subtle, unspoken connection neither expected. As they approached the edge of Valorian space, sensors detected faint disturbances, signals indicating a political blockade, a test, perhaps even an ambush. Elias assessed the readings carefully, knowing that diplomacy would now be as important as survival. Aralyn leaned over, pointing out navigational adjustments and subtle communication codes. Together, They planned a route that avoided conflict while respecting Valorian protocol. Finally, the first glimpse of the Valorian homeworld appeared. A massive planet with twin moons, its cities shining with crystalline structures that reflected sunlight across the clouds. The sight was breathtaking. Elias could see why this civilization commanded respect and awe across the galaxy. Yet he also understood that beauty often concealed danger. Political intrigue, rival factions, and strict traditions could be as perilous as any battlefield. Aralyn, standing beside him at the viewport, spoke softly. "You have exceeded my expectations, Captain Mercer. Not only in survival and skill, but in understanding." Elias smiled. "And you've surprised me as well. I expected a formal, rigid passenger. Instead, I found someone willing to share knowledge, to trust, and to work as a partner." The ship descended toward the planetary orbit, entering a field of diplomatic ships and patrols. Elias maneuvered carefully, following Aralyn's guidance and protocols. It was a delicate dance, one that required precision, patience, and mutual trust. And for the first time, he felt that the reward he had been given, this partnership with the princess, was something far greater than he had ever imagined. Humans thrived in adversity, yes, but perhaps, Elias thought, they also thrived in connection. And this journey, which had begun with a simple mission, was becoming far more extraordinary than he could have ever predicted. The Valorian homeworld grew larger in the viewport, a magnificent planet of shimmering crystal cities and wide oceans that glowed faintly under the light of its twin moons. Captain Elias Mercer adjusted the ship's trajectory carefully, knowing that entry into Valorian space was not just a matter of navigation but diplomacy. One wrong move could be interpreted as a threat, especially by factions wary of humans. Princess Aralyn stood beside him, her posture perfectly straight, her glowing eyes fixed on the distant cities. "This sector is heavily monitored," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "Every ship is scanned. Any deviation from protocol is noted and reported. You must follow instructions precisely." Elias nodded. "Understood. We're going to make this smooth." As they approached the official docking zone, sensors detected unusual movement, several ships approaching at high speed, cutting through patrol lanes with reckless precision. Elias' instincts went on high alert. "Aralyn, we've got company," he muttered, scanning the readings. "These ships aren't following protocol, they're armed and aggressive." Aralyn's eyes narrowed. "Pirates or something else?" "Neither," Elias replied. "They know the exact value of the Scifi crystal. This isn't random. Someone is testing us or trying to intercept us." He activated defensive shields and moved the ship into a series of evasive maneuvers. The intruding ships fired warning blasts, which his shields absorbed, and Elias responded with careful countermeasures, forcing them to retreat slightly without causing damage. "Human ingenuity," Aralyn said quietly, impressed. "You do not panic under pressure." "Most humans would make rash choices." Elias smiled faintly. "Instincts and experience, plus I know how to read my opponent." The threat passed as quickly as it arrived, leaving the patrol lanes quiet again. Elias exhaled, tension easing slightly. "That should buy us some time." "But we're not out of danger yet. Whoever that was will likely regroup." Aralyn turned to him, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You handled that well. Perhaps there is more to humanity than I understood. Your courage is remarkable." Elias shrugged modestly. "Courage alone doesn't save lives. Planning, quick thinking, and understanding your environment do. Humans are good at adapting to unexpected situations." She studied him silently, sensing the depth of his experience. He was more than a capable pilot or soldier. He was someone who could think clearly under pressure, someone who could anticipate danger and act decisively. It was a rare combination, even among Valorians trained in strategy and diplomacy. Docking at the Valorian station was a complex process. Elias followed precise instructions, guided by Aralyn's calm, detailed directions. Every movement, every adjustment was monitored by thousands of sensors and officials. Yet Elias managed the maneuver flawlessly. The ship touched down with a soft hum, and the docking clamps engaged securely. As they disembarked, the scale of Valorian society became evident. Towers of crystal and metal rose into the sky, connected by bridges and energy conduits that shimmered with light. Elegant ships moved silently through the airways, guided by intricate traffic control systems. Officials in flowing, glowing robes observed their arrival, noting every detail with sharp eyes. Elias kept his posture confident but respectful, aware that every gesture mattered. Aralyn walked beside him, her presence commanding attention without effort. Humans were unusual in Valorian space, direct, expressive, and sometimes unpredictable. Yet Elias carried himself with a calm authority that invited trust rather than suspicion. Their first audience was with the Valorian Council, a group of elders and officials who oversaw diplomatic matters and monitored the balance of power among factions. They were curious, cautious, and clearly skeptical of the humans standing before them. "Princess Aralyn," one elder began, his voice melodic yet firm. "You have returned from Zyphora, and you bring a human companion?" Elias bowed slightly, keeping his tone respectful. "I am Captain Elias Mercer. I was contracted by the Galactic Trade Council to ensure the safe transport of Princess Aralyn. My mission was completed successfully." The Council's gaze shifted to Aralyn. She spoke with quiet authority. "Captain Mercer proved himself capable. His skill and judgment ensured the mission's success. I recommend his actions be acknowledged appropriately." Murmurs passed among the council members, some skeptical, some intrigued. A few seemed visibly annoyed that a human, traditionally viewed as unpredictable, was given responsibility for a royal's safety. One council member, clearly opposed to human involvement, stepped forward. "And what guarantees do we have that this human is trustworthy? He may have survived Zyphora, but survival does not equate to loyalty or understanding of Valorian customs." Elias met the gaze firmly. "I understand your concerns. My loyalty is proven by my actions, not words. The princess's safety was my top priority. I did not falter, and I would not falter under your scrutiny." There was a pause as the council absorbed his words. Then Aralyn spoke again. "Captain Mercer demonstrated courage, intelligence, and respect. These qualities are valuable, regardless of origin. You would be wise to recognize them." The opposition muttered, but the influence of Aralyn's presence was clear. Even among Valorians, her authority carried weight. Elias noted the subtle shift in energy. The council, even the skeptical members, had to acknowledge the effectiveness of his actions. After the formal audience, Elias was led to quarters assigned to him temporarily. Aralyn accompanied him, and for the first time the princess allowed herself a small gesture of camaraderie. "You handled yourself well," she said quietly as they entered the chamber. "Not just in survival, but in diplomacy. Many humans would have faltered." Elias set the Zyphora crystal carefully on a stand in the room. "It's not about humans being better or worse," he replied. "It's about understanding the situation, thinking ahead, and acting decisively. That works in any species, any culture." Aralyn observed him thoughtfully. "You are different from what I expected. Strong, yes, but also careful and measured. And you listen. You understand more than most humans I have encountered." Elias smiled. "Maybe humans are underestimated too often. We survive in ways others cannot predict. We adapt, we learn. We care." The following day brought the first real test of their growing partnership. A minor political crisis erupted when a faction opposed to the princess's authority staged a blockade on one of the orbital ports. Their message was clear. No human influence would be tolerated. Elias was briefed by Aralyn, who outlined the situation and the complex rules of engagement. "We cannot attack. Violence would escalate the situation. We must negotiate while maintaining safety," she explained. Elias listened carefully. "So we navigate through diplomacy while staying ready for anything." "Got it." Using a combination of Valorian protocols and his own understanding of human negotiation tactics, Elias guided Aralyn through the corridors of influence. He suggested routes, timing, and approaches that minimized risk and maximized the chances of success. Aralyn implemented these ideas with precision, her knowledge of alien etiquette blending seamlessly with his practical experience. Together, they approached the leaders of the opposing faction. Elias' presence was unusual, and some initially resisted his involvement. But his calm, respectful demeanor, coupled with clear reasoning and courage, earned cautious respect. He explained their intentions, highlighted the mutual benefits of cooperation, and reinforced Aralyn's authority without threatening anyone's status. Hours of negotiation followed, tense and intricate. Every word mattered. Every gesture was scrutinized. Yet Elias and Aralyn worked as a unit, balancing Valorian protocol with human ingenuity. Slowly, resistance softened. Compromises were reached. Tensions eased. By the end of the day, the blockade was lifted and a fragile agreement was established. As they returned to their quarters, both were exhausted yet satisfied. "You handled that brilliantly," Arelyn said quietly, her tone carrying genuine admiration. "I did not expect your approach to succeed so smoothly. Humans are impressive when applied wisely." Elias chuckled softly. "It's all about observation, understanding, and timing. Sometimes a human perspective offers solutions others might overlook, and sometimes it's about persistence. You don't give up when things get hard." Arelyn smiled faintly, a rare expression for someone so controlled and disciplined. "I can see that now. Perhaps this journey will teach me more than I expected, not just about humans, but about leadership, trust, and collaboration." That night, as the ship rested in orbit, Elias gazed out at the glowing cities below. The challenges they faced were only beginning. Political intrigue, hidden agendas, and potential dangers awaited them, yet he felt a quiet confidence. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of forming bonds that transcended species and expectations. And with Princess Arelyn at his side, he sensed that their journey together could change more than just their own fates. It could influence the future of two civilizations. He turned to her as she quietly observed the view. "This mission was never just about transporting you," he said softly. "It's about trust, about proving that humans and Valorians can work together even in the most difficult situations." Arelyn met his gaze, her glowing eyes reflecting both the city lights and a growing curiosity. "You have proven that already, Captain Mercer, and I believe this is only the beginning." The night passed quietly, but both remained alert. They knew that greater challenges were coming, factions still opposed, hidden enemies watching, and the delicate balance of diplomacy at risk. Yet they also understood that together, human ingenuity and Valorian wisdom could overcome obstacles that neither could face alone. Elias felt a rare sense of satisfaction. The mission had begun as a simple transport task, yet it had evolved into something far greater, a test of skill, courage, trust, and understanding. And through it all, he realized that the greatest rewards often came not from treasure or credit, but from connection, partnership, and the chance to prove that humanity could stand shoulder to shoulder with even the most advanced civilizations. As the first dawn touched the planet's crystalline towers, Elias and Arelyn prepared for the next phase of their journey, one that would test not only their abilities, but the strength of the bond forming between human and princess, trust and respect bridging the vast gap between species. And somewhere deep within the challenges ahead, the promise of something extraordinary waited. The halls of the Valorian palace stretched endlessly, shimmering with crystal light that reflected in every direction. Captain Elias Mercer walked beside Princess Arelyn, trying to keep pace with her confident stride. Despite the beauty of the palace, there was a tension in the air, a subtle undercurrent of politics and power that Elias had learned to read carefully. Every corner could hide a diplomat, a spy, or someone eager to test the human who had dared to earn the princess's trust. Arelyn moved with ease, her presence commanding respect without any need for words. Elias, however, was acutely aware of the scrutiny that followed him. Valorian officials, elders, and guards studied his every move. Some seemed curious, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. Elias understood this was no longer just a mission of transport. It was a trial of his character, skill, and the value of humanity in the eyes of a proud and ancient civilization. Their first meeting of the day was with the High Council, a group of 12 elders who ruled in tandem with the princess. The council chamber was vast, filled with soft light that glowed from crystal panels embedded in the walls. The elders were seated in a semicircle, their expressions unreadable, but Elias sensed the weight of expectation pressing down upon him. "Captain Mercer," one elder began, his voice calm yet laced with caution, "you have escorted Princess Arelyn safely through dangerous space. That is commendable, but your presence here raises questions about human reliability and understanding of our ways." Elias stood straight, his tone firm but respectful. "I understand your concerns. My duty was to ensure the princess's safety, and I have fulfilled it. I respect Valorian culture, and I am willing to learn and follow your guidance." Another elder, clearly older and more cautious, spoke next. "The princess's safety was paramount, yet her presence with a human may be viewed by some factions as a threat. How do you justify this arrangement?" Elias' gaze met the princess's briefly. She nodded subtly, giving him silent support. He turned back to the council. Trust is built through action. I have acted with respect, intelligence, and integrity. The results speak for themselves. Humans may be underestimated, but we adapt, we survive, and we honor the responsibilities we are given. The council murmured among themselves. Some nodded subtly, others frowned. Elias felt the subtle shift of energy. His words had made an impact. The princess's presence gave weight to his statements, yet it was his actions and composure that held the room's attention. After the formal discussion, Arelyn led Elias through a quieter corridor, away from the council's eyes. "You handled that well," she said softly. "Most humans would have faltered under such scrutiny. You did not." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "I've faced pressure before, though I admit being judged by an entire alien council is a new experience." She studied him thoughtfully. "You are more capable than I imagined. I expected a human to be unpredictable, impulsive, and perhaps reckless. Instead, you are measured, careful, and intelligent. I am beginning to understand why the council placed you here." Elias felt a flicker of pride, tempered by the knowledge that the real challenges had only just begun. "We've done well so far, but this palace holds more than beauty. Politics, power struggles, and hidden agendas are everywhere. We need to be ready for anything." The following days were a whirlwind of introductions, lessons, and subtle tests. Elias met diplomats from across the galaxy, each curious about the human who had gained the princess's trust. Some sought to manipulate him, others to challenge him, but he navigated each encounter with calm logic and respect. He observed, learned, and acted when necessary, earning cautious admiration. One afternoon, as they walked through the palace gardens, Arelyn spoke of the challenges she faced as a princess. "Leadership is not just about power," she said. "It is about understanding people, managing conflict, and making choices that benefit many, not just a few. Too often I see humans act impulsively, focusing on personal gain. You are different." Elias glanced at her, intrigued. "Different how?" "Measured," she replied. "Strategic yet empathetic. You do not act for recognition or glory. You act because it is necessary, because it is right. That is rare, even among my people." Elias nodded slowly. "Perhaps it is simply human nature to survive and protect those we care about. We value life in ways that are sometimes misunderstood by others." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A group of palace guards rushed past them, their expressions tense. Arelyn's eyes narrowed. "Something is happening. Follow me." They were led to a chamber where council members argued heatedly. A rival faction had attempted to undermine Arelyn's authority, questioning her decisions and loyalty. The room was tense, filled with voices raised in accusation. Elias observed quietly. He understood the delicate balance of power. Intervening too directly could be seen as disrespectful. Remaining passive could allow chaos to escalate. He turned to Arelyn. "What do you want me to do?" She considered him for a moment. "Help me find a way to calm this, to show them that leadership requires action, wisdom, and trust. Use your perspective as an outsider. They may listen to someone not bound by our traditions." Elias nodded. He stood and addressed the council, his voice firm yet respectful. "Your factional disputes are clear, but consider this. The princess has returned safely from Zyphora, with dangers none of us could have foreseen. Her leadership ensured survival, her judgment ensured success, and her foresight preserved lives. Perhaps we should recognize results, not just rhetoric." The chamber fell silent. Elias continued, carefully emphasizing cooperation, mutual respect, and the value of measured action. His words were simple, direct, and effective. They cut through political posturing, appealing to logic rather than tradition. Slowly, tension eased. Members who had been opposed softened, while others remained cautious. The immediate crisis was resolved, though Elias knew the underlying rivalries would persist. Yet for now, he had proven that human reasoning and calm action could influence even the most complex political conflicts. Arelyn's gaze met his, gratitude and respect shining in her eyes. "You see clearly," she said. "Many of my people cannot see beyond tradition. You offer perspective, clarity, and balance. That is why you are here." Elias allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "We're a good team," he said. "Humans may be underestimated, but when we work together, we can accomplish much more than expected." The days that followed brought further challenges. A ceremonial event was scheduled to honor the princess's return. The ceremony required strict adherence to tradition, intricate rituals, and flawless execution. Any misstep could embarrass Arelyn, weaken her authority, or anger powerful factions. Elias worked alongside Arelyn, studying protocols, practicing gestures, and learning the subtle nuances of Valorian culture. He made suggestions based on logic and human experience, ensuring that every step was precise, yet adaptable to unexpected changes. Arelyn implemented his ideas, impressed by his ability to grasp and respect customs without losing practicality. During the ceremony, rival factions attempted subtle disruptions, testing both the princess and her human companion. Elias anticipated each move, adjusting subtly, guiding Arelyn's actions, and preventing embarrassment or harm. By the end of the event, the princess's authority was reinforced, and the council members, those opposed and supportive alike, recognized the strength of her leadership and the value of Elias' guidance. Afterward, they walked in the palace gardens again, the moonlight reflecting off the crystal towers. "You have done more than I expected," Arelyn said quietly. "You have not only kept me safe but strengthened my position, improved my authority, and earned respect." "Humans are remarkable," Elias smiled. "It's not just humans, it's cooperation, trust, and action. You've taught me that leadership is not just about courage or strength. It's about understanding, patience, and knowing when to act. Together, we can accomplish more than alone." For the first time, there was a subtle warmth between them, a recognition that went beyond duty or obligation. Respect had grown into something deeper, a bond of trust, understanding, and partnership. Both sensed it, though neither spoke the words aloud. Their calm was soon interrupted. A hidden threat emerged. Intelligence reports indicated that a faction still opposed to Arelyn's authority planned a covert assassination attempt. The palace's defenses had missed subtle signals, but Elias and Arelyn detected them through careful observation and analysis. They acted swiftly. Elias coordinated security measures, rerouted patrols, and reinforced protective barriers, while Arelyn used her knowledge of palace layouts, political patterns, and factional behavior to anticipate every potential move. Together, they neutralized the threat before it could manifest, saving countless lives and preserving the integrity of the princess's rule. After the crisis, Arelyn turned to Elias. "You have done what many of my people cannot. You see clearly, act decisively, and protect without hesitation. That is extraordinary." Elias shook his head modestly. "I simply do what is necessary. Humans survive by adapting, by protecting those they care about, and by thinking ahead. You taught me that leadership requires more than courage. It requires understanding. Together, we balance each other." That night, as the palace settled into quiet, Arelyn and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. The events of the past days weighed heavily, but the successes had strengthened their bond. They had faced danger, political intrigue, and hidden threats, emerging stronger and more connected. Elias gazed at the stars above, reflecting on how the mission had evolved. What had begun as a simple transport task had become a journey of trust, partnership, and revelation. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of remarkable insight. And when paired with intelligence, wisdom, and courage, even the most complex political systems could be navigated successfully. Arelyn turned to him, her glowing eyes softening. "I expected a human to be unpredictable and perhaps reckless. Instead, I found someone who acts with precision, courage, and integrity. That is rare, that is valuable." Elias smiled. "And I expected a simple mission. Instead, I found partnership, trust, and a chance to prove that humans can do more than survive. They can inspire, protect, and lead." As the twin moons reflected off the crystalline towers below, both understood that their journey was far from over. Greater challenges awaited: political intrigue, hidden enemies, and the delicate balance of alliances. But they also knew that together, human ingenuity and Valorian wisdom could overcome obstacles neither could face alone. The palace lights dimmed, the city quieted, yet both remained vigilant. For the first time, Elias felt that his reward, the trust, respect, and partnership with Princess Arelyn, was something beyond credits, crystals, or recognition. It was a bond that could shape the future, a testament to what humans could achieve when courage, intellect, and heart were combined. And somewhere in the challenges ahead, he realized extraordinary outcomes awaited. The Valorian palace shimmered under the twin moons, its crystal towers casting long reflections across the city below. Captain Elias Mercer stood at the edge of the grand balcony, the soft wind brushing against his face. Princess Arelyn stood beside him, quiet and contemplative, her glowing eyes reflecting both the city lights and a quiet determination. The events of the past days had brought them closer, forged trust between human and princess, and prepared them for the ultimate challenge that now loomed. Intelligence reports had revealed that a coalition of factions opposed to Arelyn's rule planned a coordinated coup. It was more sophisticated than anything Elias had faced before, combining stealth, political manipulation, and the threat of violence. The palace was a maze of intrigue, and one wrong move could cost countless lives, including Arelyn's. Elias turned to her. "This is it. The real test. Your leadership is at stake, and my role is to protect you and ensure stability. Are you ready?" Arelyn's expression was calm, but there was an intensity in her eyes. "I have been ready for days, Captain, but I am grateful to have you here." "Humans are unpredictable, yes, but you have proven invaluable." Elias smiled faintly. "And you've taught me that leadership requires more than courage. It requires understanding, patience, and decisiveness. Together, we can face this." The first signs of the coup were subtle. Unmarked ships appeared in orbit, their movements precise, avoiding detection by standard patrols. Within the palace, messages were intercepted, officials were influenced, and certain security protocols were bypassed. Elias and Arelyn worked together, combining human intuition and Valorian strategy to anticipate each move. Elias coordinated the palace defenses, redirecting patrols and reinforcing security nodes, while Arelyn used her knowledge of political alliances to identify the ringleaders among the factions. Together, they created a plan that was both defensive and strategic, aiming not just to repel the threat, but to expose the culprits and restore stability. The coup began at dawn, with the first wave of intruders attempting to seize control of key palace entrances. Elias' experience in tactical maneuvers proved invaluable. He directed guards to strategic positions, anticipating every move of the attackers. Lasers fired in controlled bursts, disabling enemy drones and stopping intruders without unnecessary casualties. The palace was chaos, but controlled chaos, orchestrated by a human and a princess who had become a formidable team. Arelyn, moving through the halls with elegance and precision, confronted key conspirators. Her authority and presence were undeniable, reinforced by Elias' support. Each step she took was measured, every command delivered with clarity. She neutralized threats through both strategy and diplomacy, turning potential enemies into allies by appealing to reason, logic, and the shared interest of the kingdom. As the battle within the palace continued, Elias intercepted a group attempting to breach the central control chamber. He moved with calm precision, disarming traps and directing security teams to block entry points. Each decision was quick but measured, relying on both human ingenuity and knowledge of Valorian systems. Inside the chamber, Arelyn faced her most dangerous challenge. A rival faction had infiltrated, attempting to access sensitive communication channels to broadcast false information and incite rebellion. Arelyn remained composed, her glowing eyes focused, her mind calculating every possibility. Elias entered the chamber alongside her, and together they worked seamlessly. While Arelyn identified the threats and coordinated the palace systems, Elias used his understanding of technology and strategy to counteract the intruders. Their movements were synchronized, human and Valorian minds working as one. The confrontation reached its climax when the leader of the opposing faction attempted a bold move, seizing Arelyn and broadcasting a false message to the entire planet, claiming that the princess had abandoned her duties. Elias reacted instantly, positioning himself between the intruder and Arelyn, his focus unwavering. In a swift but precise move, he neutralized the threat, ensuring Arelyn's safety and preventing chaos from spreading. Arelyn looked at him with a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have saved not just me, but the stability of the kingdom," she said softly. Elias shook his head modestly. "We did this together. Your leadership and insight guided every action. Humans can act, but without your wisdom, none of this would have succeeded." With the immediate threats neutralized, Arelyn and Elias turned their attention to the political aftermath. They identified the conspirators, exposed hidden agendas, and restored order. The council, initially skeptical of human involvement, acknowledged Elia's crucial role. His actions had not only protected the princess, but had proven that humans could contribute meaningfully to even the most delicate and complex situations. A formal gathering was held in the palace hall, a celebration of both Aralin's survival and the successful resolution of the coup. Delegates from across the planet and galaxy attended, observing the unusual but undeniable partnership between the human captain and the Valorian princess. Applause and admiration were offered freely, and Elias, though humble, accepted recognition with quiet dignity. Aralyn stood beside him as the crowd acknowledged his efforts. She placed a hand gently on his arm, a gesture of trust and respect. "Captain Mercer," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the hall, "your courage, skill, and loyalty have not only ensured my safety but have strengthened the kingdom and proven the value of partnership across species. Humanity is fortunate to have someone like you." Elias felt a warmth he had not expected. This was more than recognition or reward, it was acknowledgement of trust, partnership, and shared purpose. "Thank you, Princess," he replied, "but the greatest reward is knowing we achieved this together." Humans and Valorians, working side by side, can face any challenge. The celebration continued into the night, and for a moment, peace and joy filled the palace. Yet Elias and Aralyn remained aware that challenges would continue to arise. Leadership was an ongoing test, and vigilance was necessary. But they also understood the strength of the bond they had formed, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared experience. In the days that followed, Aralyn and Elias worked closely to strengthen alliances, implement security improvements, and ensure that the kingdom remained stable. Their partnership became a symbol of hope, showing that cooperation between species could overcome even the most daunting challenges. Aralyn confided in Elias one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. "I had doubts about bringing a human into the heart of our kingdom," she admitted. "But you have proven that trust can bridge worlds, that courage and intelligence are not limited by species, and that partnership can achieve what individuals alone cannot." Elias looked at her, his expression sincere. "And I have learned that leadership is not just about strength or skill, it is about understanding, empathy, and knowing when to act. You have taught me that. Together, we complement each other, and together, we can achieve more than either of us could alone." The bond between them deepened further in the weeks that followed. They shared not only strategy and planning, but also moments of quiet reflection, learning about each other's worlds, values, and histories. Trust became mutual respect, respect grew into admiration, and admiration blossomed into a subtle, unspoken connection that neither could ignore. As peace settled over the kingdom, Elias reflected on the journey that had begun as a simple transport mission. He had expected a reward of gratitude or recognition, perhaps a commendation from the council or a gesture of thanks from the princess. Instead, he had received something far greater: trust, partnership, and the bond of someone who valued his judgment, skill, and character. Aralyn, standing beside him once more on the palace balcony, looked out at the city below. "You have exceeded every expectation, Captain Mercer, not only in action but in understanding, in partnership, and in heart. That is a rare gift." Elias smiled softly. "And you have shown that leadership, wisdom, and trust can shape not only a kingdom but the future of worlds. I am grateful to have been part of this journey with you." There was a moment of silence, the kind that carried more meaning than words. The city lights sparkled below, reflecting the quiet triumph of two individuals who had faced danger, politics, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger together. Finally, Aralyn spoke, her voice gentle yet confident. "Perhaps this is only the beginning, Captain. There is much to do, many challenges ahead, but I am no longer uncertain, for I know that with you by my side, we can face anything." Elias placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity and mutual respect. "Then we face it together," he said. "Humans and Valorians, side by side. Whatever comes, we are ready." The night continued, but Elias felt a sense of completion. The mission had begun as a simple task, evolved into a trial of skill and character, and culminated in trust, partnership, and recognition that transcended species and expectation. He had received far more than he had anticipated. He had found a bond that was both professional and personal, a connection that would endure beyond the challenges of the moment. In the weeks and months that followed, Elias continued to serve the princess and the kingdom, his partnership with Arelyn becoming a model for cooperation across species. Together, they navigated diplomacy, defended the kingdom from threats, and fostered understanding between humans and Valorians. And in the quiet moments, away from the eyes of the council, the city, and the galaxy, Elias and Arelyn shared a simple truth, that courage, trust, and partnership were the greatest rewards of all. The mission that began as a journey of transport had transformed into a story of trust, heroism, and a bond that promised to shape not just their lives but the future of two civilizations. And in that bond, Elias realized he had received the most extraordinary reward of all, the respect, trust, and partnership of a princess, and the knowledge that together humans and Valorians could accomplish the extraordinary. The stars above glimmered, the city below sparkled, and the future stretched endlessly before them, full of promise, challenge, and the certainty that together, they were stronger than any obstacle, braver than any fear, and capable of achieving more than either could alone.